Hello and welcome everyone. This video professional learning session is entitled 10 Tips for Providing Effective Feedback to Improve Student Learning. This session is intended to be done asynchronously by individual participants. There has been an accompanying participant's guide developed for you to use during your learning experience, and the link to the guide has been provided to your district professional development administrator. The participant's guide is provided as a means for you to access the interactive activities that correlate with this professional development. At this time, if you do not have the participant's guide, you may wish to pause or end the video, acquire access to the guide, and then initiate the professional development session at another time once you have gained access. If you do have access to this guide, it will be used to elicit evidence of interaction and task completion so that you can turn the information in to your district administrator and receive CEU credit for the course. If you have access to the guide, you will find that it is in view-only mode. You will need to follow the directions at the top of the guide to make an editable copy so that you can type directly into your own individual guide to complete the activities. If you have done so and you have your individual guide readily available, we will move forward with the presentation. We hope that the content in this session will be beneficial to your role in instructing your students in an effective manner. At this time, we will continue the session as intended. Much of the information provided in this PowerPoint was borrowed from the following resource: Descriptive Feedback, Assessment for Learning Video Series Viewing Guide, a resource to support the implementation of Growing Success. Assessment, Evaluation, and Reporting in Ontario Schools. It's the first edition covering grades 1 through 12, and it was written in 2010. It was retrieved from www.edugains.ca.com. This professional development session is provided to you in partnership between your local school district and the University of North Carolina at Pembroke's North Carolina New Teacher Support Program. You do not have to be a new teacher to participate because our program partnerships allow for us to provide district-wide PD to partnering districts where we serve new teachers by coaching them to success during the initial license process. I am Jamie Graham, UNCP Instructional Coach, and I will be the host of this training. This slide provides you with a biographical sketch of my work in education over the last 24 years. I am happy to be your presenter, and I look forward to our time together. So let's get started with a little humor. To help us understand our new normal, this video may help you connect to your current balancing act as we are all trying hard to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic era. Many of us have children ourselves who are home with us as we are trying to carry out our professional duties. And even if you're not in that situation, I'm sure you will find that this may very well be a video that is similar to the lives of the families you touch every day and what they may be experiencing. Let's watch together.
Guys, please do your schoolwork. I'm done. It's only 9. Mom, we don't have any toilet paper. Mom, I'm hungry. Once you're finally getting home.
Remember that we are all in this together. Your UNCP instructional coaching team is here for you. And please know that we want to be support for you as you navigate through this uncharted territory. We're all in this together, even if we can't hold hands right now. This slide provides you with the intended outcomes of the professional learning experience. And I would like for you to take some time to read these few bulleted points in preparation for the upcoming content. In the event that this session had been live, virtual norms would be necessary. Since you are working individually, some of these norms may not apply. But if you are viewing this PD through a collective group situation, an online collaborative venue, you can read these norms and take the time to ensure that you are meeting the expectations as an individual. Additional meeting norms are shared here because we want you to have the grace with our team as we are learning to provide virtual professional development. Remember, we're all in this together and want to respect one another's individual learning curves. All of the UNCP New Teacher Support Program presentations are aligned to the North Carolina teaching standards. Our content today aligns to Standard 2, 3, and 4. The link to access the complete list of teaching standards is provided for you in the Resources to Support Presentation section of your participant guide. Let's start with some discussion around formative assessment. Formative assessment should be considered as a process and not a product of learning. The formative assessment process is a deliberate process used by teachers and students during instruction that provides actionable feedback that is used to adjust ongoing teaching and learning, strategies to improve students' attainment of curricular learning targets and goals. Providing feedback during this process is essential, and more often than not, this occurs during the time with the teachers when the teachers are using evidence from a specific strategy that has been taught and giving feedback to students on their independent use of that strategy. During this time, the feedback supports a student through interventions and scaffolded success. Not only do teachers need to consider providing feedback during the learning process, teachers need to ensure that the feedback provided is descriptive in nature. Descriptive feedback provided during the formative assessment process helps to improve learning while the learning is occurring or evolving over time. In fact, it is considered the most powerful tool for improving students' learning. Great positive effects on student learning and engagement occur when descriptive feedback is in motion. This slide describes that descriptive feedback is a powerful tool and that the research from Hattie and Temperley in 2007, Black, Harrison, Lee, and William in 2003 stands the test of time. Descriptive feedback can be a valuable source to a teacher working with their students to engage in opportunities to improve learning. Oftentimes, understanding a concept can be supported and better understood when it is explained by sharing what it is not. So let's take a look at what descriptive feedback is not. It's not a grade or a score. It's not a value judgment. It's not advice where opinions or guidance or general suggestions are too vague. It's not an assessment. So you're not collecting comparative data and providing some type of judgment at one given time on a student's direction of learning. It's non-evaluative. And looking at praise, while we know that praise can be very important to the social and emotional aspect of our students, those positive pats on the back feel good, but oftentimes for feedback to move learning forward, those positive pats on the backs can lack the detail needed to implement change. The Council of Chief State School Officers have written an article to help deepen the understanding of formative assessment. They've defined the critical attributes of formative assessment as a process. If you will refer to the participants guide, you can access this article for review. As a part of the interactive nature of this learning experience, you will pause the video, open the link to the article, and read about these attributes. Once you have read the article, please return back to the video, press play for further learning and directions for an accompanying activity to complete. Welcome back. Now that you have read the article, you will complete a graphic organizer that can be found in the participants guide in the resources to support the presentation section related to slides 13 and 14. Before you begin this activity, remember, rather than a score or grade, descriptive feedback is provided in the form of ideas, strategies, and tasks the students can use to move from the current learning status toward an identified learning target. Feedback provides information to students and teachers about learning. It helps to reduce the gap between the student's current level of understanding and the performance that is the desired goal. Feedback can have a significant impact on learning, but this impact can be positive or negative depending on the type, the delivery, and the timing of that feedback. Evaluative feedback and frequent evaluation can have a negative impact on the learning and the motivation of the student. Even praise, when focused on characteristics of the learner rather than characteristics of the work, can have the opposite of the intended effect. After the completion of the activity and noting your completion of evidence in the section of the participants guide noted to be evidence of participation and task completion column, come back to this part of the video and continue moving forward with the content. You may pause now. We hope that you have made some connections to the formative assessment process and the use of descriptive feedback. To check your understanding, we hope that you will note that descriptive feedback is specific, it's timely, and it's based on the learning target and criteria for success. Descriptive feedback helps students to learn by providing information about their current achievement. In other words, where am I now? The student may ask themselves and may be able to answer that through effective descriptive feedback. And with respect to the goal that's been set, the question would be, where am I going? Then, descriptive feedback would allow for the student and the teacher to be able to identify the appropriate next steps, answering the question, how can I close the gap? Effective feedback should relate to the learning goals and success criteria identified for that task. Even when identifying what was done well, the comments should reflect the goals and criteria. There should be an emphasis of importance for directing praise to the characteristics of students' work or performance rather than the characteristics of the individual student. Remember, we've already talked about how praise can have a negative effect on learning because it directs students' attention away from the learning and onto what the teacher thinks of them. We want to veer away from students having a reflective process of questioning if the teacher thinks I'm smart or not smart. Or based on what a teacher says, the interpretation is my teacher likes me or doesn't like me. Work-related feedback does a much better job of developing students' beliefs that efforts will lead to success. Students should use feedback to make adjustments in their own learning. This next activity will allow for you to view a video entitled Austin's Butterfly. Here you will watch the value of descriptive feedback process and how it works even with our youngest children. After the video, you will be able to more effectively complete the rest of the activities for this session. Let's begin watching now.
What would you guys say to teachers if they're not getting high quality work? Could they learn something from this? And what would you say to them that they could do differently in their classrooms? This is a story called Austin's Butterfly. And it's a true story about a first grade boy, and his name is Austin, and he goes to school, or used to go to school, in a town called Boise, Idaho. And in his class in Boise, Idaho, they were studying butterflies, and he had to do a project. His job in first grade was to draw a butterfly, and this is the butterfly that he picked. Austin had to use this photograph as his model, and he had to draw an accurate scientific drawing of this butterfly. This is called a tiger swallowtail.
I knew it!
Can you tell, Toby, why it's called tiger?
Because it kind of has the stripes of the tiger right there.
Good. So, here was Austin's job. He was supposed to do a scientific drawing of that butterfly. But remember, Austin was only in first grade. And you know what he did? He forgot to look like a scientist carefully. He got his paper and he just started to draw the image of a butterfly that he had in his head. And he wasn't looking like a scientist, and so this is what he drew.
Whoa.
It's not bad, and it is a butterfly, but does it look exactly like this? No, it doesn't yet. It doesn't look exactly like this yet. And so they didn't look at this and say, good, Austin, you're done. They said, Austin, good start. Now we can start giving you critique so you can do a second draft and make it better, and a third draft and make it better, and you can make it much, much closer to this. And he was ready to go. All of the first graders in his critique group sat on the floor like you guys are, and they decided to split their advice into two kinds. First, just the shape of the wings. And then when the shape was right, they'd give him advice about the pattern inside the wings. Alia, what would you say?
You can make it much pointier.
Good. These wings could be much pointier. Who else would add something? Atak, what would you say?
How about the angle? Because, not to be mean about
Yes.
the angle, it's just not exact, so...
Okay, so show me. Come on up here, Atak. Show me what you would ask him to do slightly differently.
like to make it a little longer.
Longer where? Draw where you would do it.
Right there.
Okay, so pull this out longer.
Yeah.
That's very specific, Atak. Thank you. Jamila, what would you say?
It's like triangle?
Good. Jamila, I love that. So you're saying more like a triangle shape. And I agree. Well, you know what? Those first graders came up with most of those same ideas. And you know what Austin said? He said, okay, I'll go try. And he went back to his seat and he drew this.
Wow.
Does this look more like a triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he go out further, like Atak was suggesting?
Yeah.
Did he add some jaggedness here?
Yes.
Like Cindy, did he get rid of that bottom thing?
Yes.
So he did listen to his friends, and he made it better. It's not perfect. Toby, what would you say?
I'd say don't put those little tail things so pointed in. I'd say put them more pointed down.
Good. Okay, and Ethan, what would you say?
I think you should make the wings like this, not like just like
Okay, he listened to his friends, and they said, this is really a lot better, Austin. That second draft really is better.
Yeah, maybe you can make a third one.
Good, maybe he could make a third draft. And so he did this draft.
That's his third draft.
That's his third draft, Hadley. That's just right. Elijah, what do you notice there?
Well, one wing's more pointed than the other, and that side is a little bit higher than the other.
Good. Coburn?
Right here, it doesn't have the inside thing still.
Ah, okay. Needs a little bit more of that notch. So, do you think maybe he should do a fourth draft?
Yeah.
Well, that's just what he said. He said, shoot, okay, I got round again. I'll go back and do a fourth draft.
Listen.
He listened. Does it look more even like Elijah was suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah, and does it look like it's coming out a little sharper, like Cindy was suggesting? And like Attack was saying, it's a little, the angle looks a little better. So now Austin was feeling really good. He said, am I ready to add some pattern? And they said, okay, why don't you try adding some of the pattern? And he did.
He's good at it. He is so good.
And then they said, Austin, you're ready for color. Let's look at his last draft. And what do you think? Did it come out really good?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about how much progress he made? Attack, what would you say about his progress?
He made like a lot of progress. He persevered doing it. His friends were honest with him.
What was it about the kinds of advice that they gave that allowed him to get better each time? Hassan?
Well, they told him what was wrong about it.
Did they say it's just wrong, or were they more specific?
They were more specific, but they weren't mean about it.
Great. Hadley.
He made 6 drafts.
And so is that something that other kids should learn from? What should we learn from that?
You can make other drafts if it's not right.
Good. So if it's not right, you can keep doing more drafts to make it better.
You just don't use things in your head. You want to use a sharp eye.
Good. He used the eyes of a scientist. Great.
From the video, you can see that all of these areas listed on the slide were addressed. Teachers should structure feedback to identify what was done well, what needs improvement, and how to improve. This information can be conveyed orally, in writing, or as a question that causes the student to reflect. At this time, pause the video and refer to your participants guide to complete the task in the Evidence of Participation Task Completion section related to this slide. You will add your individual reflective thoughts in the box provided in this section of the guide. When you finish, you can return to the presentation and click play to move forward. Here's a list of 10 tips to provide effective feedback. Let's take a look. Number 1, be sensitive to the individual needs of the student. Number 2, reference a skill or specific strategy. 3, concentrate on one area of improvement. 4, provide information in real time. 5, involve the student in the process. 6, define actionable next steps. Very important. Number 7, collect evidence of progress. We saw that in Austin's drafts in the video. Number 8, focus on the process. Number 9, elicit information about the student's thinking. that collaboration, that understanding. And last but not least, number 10, emphasize the task and not the student's ability. This is your opportunity to practice some of these 10 tips. You will select and engage in one grade-specific follow-up activity. This will be based on your current teaching assignment. So for example, if you're a first grade teacher, you would select the K2 activity listed in the participants guide. If you're a 7th grade teacher, of course, the 6-8 activity. You will pause the video and open the appropriate grade level link related to this activity, which can be found in the Resources to Support presentation section of the participants guide. You will add your thoughts and ideas to the Google Doc for this activity. It can be found in the next column over of this section of the participants guide. When you complete the activity, return to the participants guide and answer the questions in the evidence of participation and task completion section of this guide. So all of these activities are correlated with the photo from slide 18 moving across the participants guide in each of the columns. You may pause your video now and begin your process. We hope you enjoyed having some time to practice descriptive feedback. We thank you so much for joining us today. And to help stay connected to the work of the UNCP Instructional Coaching Team, you're all invited to join and follow us on social media. There's a link for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter available to you in your participants guide. Here are some additional support tools that you may find to be helpful in providing feedback during this age of remote learning and the environment that we're currently facing. The live links to these resources can be found in the Resources to Support presentation section of the participants guide. Your feedback is important to us, and we want to learn how we can become better at meeting the needs of those we serve. Please take the time to complete the survey that can be accessed in the participants guide. Remember to also indicate in the evidence of participation and task completion section that you have completed the survey. This concludes the presentation. Please make arrangements to send your participant guide with evidence of participation to your district professional development administrator for CEU credit retrieval. Thanks for being with us today.